They're small, almost invisible. We walk past them every day without noticing. But ants are not just insects crawling in the dirt. They are engineers, warriors, farmers, strategists, and survivors. Across more than 100 million years of evolution, ants have developed behaviors that seem too complex, too intelligent, and sometimes too strange to believe. They create structures that rival human design. They coordinate attacks like trained armies. They use chemical communication, perform social manipulation, and even engage in behaviors that resemble rebellion and resistance. In this video, we'll explore 7 of the most fascinating and mind-blowing things ants do, each one revealing just how advanced and alien their world really is. Some will challenge your idea of what insects are capable of. Some will sound like science fiction, and by the end you may never look at ants the same way again. Let's begin. The first curiosity is this. Some ants build underground megacities, without leaders, without plans, and without making a single mistake. We often imagine ants digging a few simple tunnels underground. But in reality, certain species construct massive subterranean complexes, complete with chambers, highways, ventilation systems, and even waste management zones. These are not accidents. These are not basic holes in the dirt. They're functional cities, built entirely in darkness by millions of tiny creatures working in perfect coordination, all without a single individual knowing the full plan. In one of the most famous experiments, scientists poured 10 tons of liquid cement into an abandoned ant colony. After it hardened, they spent weeks excavating the solid structure beneath. What they uncovered looked like an alien city. Vast networks of tunnels, vertical shafts, branching roads, and carefully placed chambers. It covered several square meters and extended meters deep into the ground. And it had been built by ants the size of rice grains. So how is that even possible? The answer lies in collective intelligence. No single ant knows what the entire colony looks like. Each ant follows simple rules based on local information, mainly chemical trails called pheromones. These tiny chemical signals guide behavior, reinforcing paths, triggering digging, and coordinating movement. This process is known as self-organization, and it allows the colony to behave like one single organism. When enough ants respond to the same signals, they create incredibly complex structures, without intention and without any single ant understanding what they're building. It's like thousands of people building a skyscraper together, without talking, without a blueprint, and without knowing what a skyscraper even is, and still getting it right. Some species even reinforce their structures using their own secretions to harden the soil. Others regulate airflow and temperature by creating tunnel networks that naturally circulate fresh air and remove heat, natural ventilation systems built by instinct. And when something collapses, ants don't panic. They adapt. They dig new paths. They restore function. Everything is reactive. Everything is efficient. And the entire system is stable despite no centralized control. Ants achieve a level of architectural and environmental engineering that, in some ways, is more energy efficient and self-sustaining than many human systems. And they do it quietly, constantly, right beneath our feet. So next time you see an ant crawling along the sidewalk, remember, somewhere nearby, its colony may be building a structure more sophisticated than you'd ever expect. The second curiosity is this. Some ants go to war and take prisoners. We often imagine ants as peaceful, mindless workers. But in reality, there are species that specialize in organized raids, violent invasions, and even slavery. Take the polyergus ants, also known as Amazon ants. They don't build their own nests. They don't raise their young. In fact, they can't even feed themselves. Instead, they launch targeted attacks on nearby ant colonies, usually Formica species. Dozens or hundreds of soldiers storm the nest, kill the defenders, and steal the brood, larvae and pupae. Then they return to their own nest, carrying the kidnapped young. But they don't eat them. They raise them. The stolen ants grow up inside the invader's colony and begin working as if they belonged there, cleaning, foraging, feeding the queen. They become functional slaves, completely unaware they were taken from their original home. This isn't metaphor. It's literal biological slavery. And it gets even more intense. Some enslaved ants eventually recognize something's wrong. In a phenomenon scientists call slave rebellion, they start killing the pupae of their captors, or sabotaging the colony's functioning from within. It's not resistance with weapons, but resistance with instinct. And the warfare doesn't stop there. Other ant species use complex tactics. They send scouts to evaluate the strength of enemy colonies. They organize multi-wave attacks using distraction and flanking strategies. And some even deploy chemical weapons, spraying formic acid to blind or confuse enemies. These aren't random skirmishes. These are calculated, repeated, and strategic raids that resemble military campaigns. Ants will sacrifice soldiers, cut supply lines, and attack at the weakest point of defense. The motivation isn't territory. It's labor. Stealing workers is more efficient than raising your own. And yes, some species do it exclusively. Their entire survival depends on constant raids and forced labor. Without slaves, the colony collapses. We tend to think of intelligence as something connected to language or consciousness. But ants show us another version. Intelligence based on evolution, cooperation, and precise behavior patterns developed over millions of years. Their wars may be silent, but they are ruthless. And they've been happening longer than ours. So next time you see a line of ants moving through the grass, ask yourself, are they foraging? Or are they marching to war? The third curiosity is this. Ants discovered farming long before humans ever did. We usually associate farming with human civilization. We think of it as one of the major milestones that separates us from animals. But ants were cultivating crops tens of millions of years before the first human planted a seed. The most impressive example comes from the leafcutter ants of Central and South America. These ants are famous for carrying pieces of leaves many times their own body weight. But they don't eat those leaves. Instead, they use them as fertilizer for growing a very specific type of fungus. That fungus is their food. They are fungus farmers. Here's how it works. The workers cut fresh leaves and bring them back to the colony. Inside specialized underground chambers, other ants chew the leaves into pulp and carefully insert them into a fungal bed. The fungus then feeds on the leaf matter and grows, creating a soft, white substance that serves as the colony's primary food source. They don't just grow it, they maintain it. Some ants clean the fungus constantly, removing debris or contaminants. Others secrete antibiotics to fight off mold or invasive fungi. If the temperature or humidity in the chamber gets too high, they adjust airflow. If the fungal strain weakens, they may introduce a stronger one carried from a different colony. It's a fully managed agricultural system with crop care, disease control, climate regulation, and even selective breeding. All underground, all without eyes, all without a leader. In fact, their farming is so advanced that some scientists consider it co-evolution. The fungus they cultivate doesn't exist naturally outside of ant colonies anymore. It depends on the ants as much as the ants depend on it. And leafcutter ants aren't the only ones. Other ant species have been observed milking aphids, protecting them from predators in exchange for drops of sugary liquid called honeydew. It's not farming in the traditional sense, but it's still resource management. They herd, protect, and relocate aphids like livestock. This kind of behavior requires memory, coordination, and social learning. And it shows that ants don't just react to nature, they reshape it. So while humans were still wandering in small bands across prehistoric landscapes, ants had already invented agriculture. They had supply chains, they had crop specialists, they had systems in place to sustain millions of mouths. And they're still doing it now, perfectly, efficiently, invisibly. So the next time you see a leafcutter ant dragging a green fragment across the pavement, don't be fooled. You're not looking at a bug, you're looking at a farmer. The fourth curiosity is this. Ants can turn their own bodies into tools, building bridges, ladders, and even boats using nothing but themselves. Most animals are limited by their anatomy. They walk, they fly, they swim. That's it. But ants redefine what a body can be, especially when they work together. In certain species, like army ants and fire ants, colonies have developed a remarkable ability. They build physical structures out of their own bodies to overcome obstacles in real time. When an army ant colony is on the move and encounters a gap, like a crack in the ground or a branch between two surfaces, the ants don't stop. They become the bridge. Hundreds or thousands of ants lock their legs and mandibles together, creating a living chain that spans the gap. Other ants walk across them, and as soon as the column has passed, the bridge disassembles and rejoins the flow. The process is fast, flexible, and adaptive. These living bridges are dynamically adjusted. If the gap gets wider, more ants join. If it narrows, ants pull back to conserve resources. The structure isn't fixed. It evolves second by second based on the needs of the colony. Now take this to another level, floating on water. During floods, fire ants in the southeastern United States form living rafts, clinging together to stay above water for days or even weeks. Thousands of ants interlock, creating a floating platform that repels water and distributes weight evenly. The queen and the larvae are protected in the center. Scouts climb to the surface. If a threat approaches, they react instantly. And if the raft bumps into land, the ants break apart and begin rebuilding the colony on solid ground. These rafts are watertight and surprisingly durable. Scientists have even submerged them underwater, and they pop back to the surface intact. What's even more impressive is that none of the ants are coordinating this behavior consciously. There's no plan, no signal. It's all instinctive and based on local interaction, each ant responding to tension, position, and pheromone cues. To us, it looks like engineering. To them, it's just another day. This ability to use their own bodies as physical infrastructure blurs the line between organism and system. The colony doesn't just behave like a superorganism. It is a superorganism. It flows, adapts, morphs, and solves problems as one collective body, one that builds roads, crosses rivers, and carries its entire civilization with it. So next time you see a group of ants, remember, they're not just walking. They might be shaping themselves into something more. The fifth curiosity is this. Some ants can explode, literally, to protect their colony. It sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie, but it's real. In the rainforests of Southeast Asia, there exists a species known as Colobopsis explodens, or simply the exploding ant. These ants have evolved a self-destructive defense mechanism unlike anything else in the insect world. When threatened, usually by a predator or an intruding insect, certain worker ants will forcefully contract their abdominal muscles until their bodies rupture. This causes their internal glands to burst open, releasing a thick, sticky yellow substance. That substance isn't random. It's toxic. It smells intensely, sticks to everything it touches, and contains chemicals that irritate and sometimes kill the attacker. It's biological glue mixed with poison. In most cases, the ant dies instantly. That's right, this defense is suicidal. But from the colony's perspective, it's effective. A single exploding ant can block a tunnel, slow down an invader, or create enough chaos for others to mount a defense. It's like pulling the pin on a biological grenade. Even more fascinating is that this ability isn't universal across the species. Only certain minor workers develop the enlarged glands needed for this act. They're essentially living landmines, sacrificing themselves for the greater good of the colony. This isn't the only example of extreme self-sacrifice in the ant world. Other species will suffocate intruders by swarming them and sealing the nest. Some block entrances with their own heads. But the exploding ant takes it to a whole new level, weaponizing its own body as a last resort. And this isn't random chaos. The decision to explode happens under specific circumstances. It's triggered by direct contact with a threat. and likely reinforced by pheromonal signals from nearby ants. In other words, it's controlled, it's calculated. Scientists studying Colobopsis explodens have even identified multiple chemical compounds in the secretion, each one with a specific effect: glue-like adhesion, chemical deterrence, and long-lasting scent marking. So this isn't just suicide, it's strategy. Think about what that means. An insect with no central brain, no commander, and no spoken language is willing to destroy itself for its colony, and knows exactly when and how to do it. It's not loyalty, it's evolution, and it works. So the next time someone tells you ants are simple, remind them, some ants blow themselves up to defend their home. And they've been doing it longer than any human soldier ever has. The sixth curiosity is this: some ants become zombies, controlled by a parasite that hijacks their bodies and minds. This isn't a metaphor. It's one of the most disturbing and fascinating examples of parasitic manipulation in nature. The culprit is a fungus from the Ophiocordyceps genus, and its method of attack is terrifying. It begins when a spore lands on the body of an unsuspecting ant, usually a species that forages on the forest floor. The spore penetrates the ant's exoskeleton and starts spreading through its body. But the fungus doesn't kill the ant right away. Instead, it grows inside it silently. It avoids damaging vital organs at first, allowing the ant to keep moving like nothing is wrong. Then, when the fungus is ready, it takes control of the ant's behavior. The infected ant suddenly stops following pheromone trails. It leaves the colony and climbs upward, usually to the underside of a leaf or a branch, about 25 centimeters above the ground. This isn't random. It's a strategic height, ideal for fungal spore dispersal. Once there, the ant grips the leaf tightly with its mandibles in a death bite. It stays locked in place, unable to move, unable to resist, and then it dies. But the fungus keeps growing. Over the next few days, a stalk-like structure emerges from the back of the ant's head. From that stalk, spores are released, falling onto the forest floor below, where other ants pass by, and the cycle begins again. What's horrifying is that this manipulation is precise. Studies show that infected ants consistently die in the same position, at the same height, and on the same side of leaves. The fungus is not just hijacking the body, it's reprogramming behavior to serve its own reproductive strategy. This is more than infection. It's neurological puppetry. And it's not just one fungus. Different species of Ophiocordyceps target different ant species. Each one evolved to manipulate a specific host. It's a parasite that has co-evolved with its victim for millions of years, refining its technique to horrifying perfection. Scientists still don't fully understand how the fungus controls the ant's nervous system. Some think it produces neurochemicals. Others believe it physically invades muscle and brain tissue. Either way, the result is the same. An ant, alive but not itself, moving, climbing and dying according to the will of something growing inside it. So the next time you hear the word zombie, forget the movies. Because in the world of ants, zombies are real, and they're walking right now in the shadows of the forest. The seventh curiosity is this: some ants live their entire lives inside a single tree, never leaving it, never knowing anything else, and defending it like their entire universe depends on it. This happens with pseudo-myrmex ants, which form a symbiotic relationship with certain species of acacia trees in Central and South America. Here's how it works. The acacia tree provides shelter. Its hollow thorns become homes for ant colonies. It also provides food, producing small protein-rich nodules called Beltian bodies, and sweet nectar from specialized glands on its stems. In return, the ants offer the tree something no plant can do for itself: aggressive, full-time protection. The ants patrol the tree constantly, attacking anything that touches it: herbivorous insects, invading vines, and even large animals. If a browsing mammal tries to eat the leaves, dozens or hundreds of ants swarm out and bite until it backs off. They even cut down competing plants. If another tree's branches grow too close, The ants will clip the shoots and leaves, pruning the competition to ensure their acacia has full access to sunlight. It's not just survival, it's loyalty on an evolutionary level. The ants never leave the tree. They're born there, they work there, they die there. For them, the acacia isn't just a food source, it's their entire world. This relationship is so strong, the ants will attack any animal, including humans, who touch the tree. Researchers working with acacias have to be careful. Even brushing against one can trigger a full-on ant assault in seconds. And what's even more incredible, the tree evolved to accommodate them. It developed hollow thorns as living chambers. It produces food not for itself, but for its ant defenders. It's mutualism at the highest level. One species gives shelter and food. The other gives protection and maintenance. Neither could thrive without the other. In the end, this partnership shows just how deep evolution can go. An insect colony and a tree, two completely different life forms, forming a system so tightly linked they function as one. And for the ants, the universe is not made of stars or continents or oceans. It's made of branches, of sunlight between leaves, of danger at the edge of bark. For them, the acacia is everything, and they will die to protect it.